Hey, it's Byron Morrison here. And in this video, I'm going to be taking you through a really simple five-step process you can use to really determine what you should be focusing on, what's going to make the best use of your time, and from there, what you really need to delegate or let go to either other members of your team or simply outsource or remove it. With this is really important because at the end of the day, if you want to be a highly effective CEO, what you don't do is just as important as what you do. After all, there's only so many minutes in the day, and it's vital we really get you focusing on the key tasks that are actually going to be driving the business forward, or while keeping the bandwidth and energy needed to really execute on them at the highest level. Which is why, if you're stretching yourself thin or your to do list feels like you can never catch up, that's a really clear indication that you're simply taking on too much, or you're being pulled into so many different tasks that simply aren't the best use of your time. That's why these five steps I'm going to take you through is something that I take all of my clients through in our third session, when we really start determining on where they need to be showing up and how they're going to make the best use of their days to really maximize what they get done. So before we dive into these five steps, one thing that's vital that you know is, what is your zone of genius? And when I talk about your zone of genius, what I mean is what in the business can only be done by you. Really take a little bit of time to figure out. And if you're unsure about that, go check out my book, The Effective CEO, because that's the entire focus of section number one. So I don't want to rehash or go over that again now, because that would be a completely different video. But really take a little bit of time to figure out what are the tasks that can only be done by you as the CEO, and what, because from there we can really figure out outside of that what we need to take out of what you need to get done. So the first thing I want you to do is to sit down and create a list of everything that needs to get done. Think about, what deadlines do you have coming up? What projects do you need to work on? What meetings, what reports, anything that is on your to-do list that you're thinking about right now or needs to be completed. I got one of my new clients to do this recently, and he came back to me with a list of over 60 things, which for him was completely overwhelming, because their business over the last year have gone through explosive growth. They've gone from 7 members of their team, they're now at 115, and they're looking to take on another 100 in the next 12 months. And for him, he felt completely all over the place because he was trying to do the workload of 3 people. And this is a really common occurrence I see in a lot of the clients I work with, where when they start their role as a CEO, as the business grows, while things around them expand, they're taking on all of these new responsibilities, but they're still trying to balance and manage them while doing a lot of the old tasks that they did initially at the start of their role. And I'm going to come back to this shortly, giving you another example, but I really want you to start thinking about this now, because your role may have changed over the last few months. The key things that you need to get done might be different to what they were when you first got started. So really take the time to create a list of everything that needs to get done, and then go through it point by point and really ask yourself, is this actually important? Now, the reason why this is so vital is it's really easy to get into a cycle where you're focusing on busy work, or you're attending events or doing things that used to be vital for the business, but now are actually holding you back. I'll give you a perfect example. With one of my clients, when he started his business, the way that he grew it was by going to networking events. That was how he met people, he got the word out there, he managed to get himself known. But over the last couple of years, their business has grown to a point where they very much pivoted. They've now automated the vast majority of their marketing. They're offering a different service and looking for a completely different client. Yet for him, he was so stuck in the routine of going to networking events that he hadn't actually stopped to ask himself, were they actually important? And when I asked him this, he had this breakthrough of realization that he was actually wasting his time. Because not only were the events he going to, none of his potential clients were there, they were also something that he dreaded. He absolutely hated getting up early in the morning to drag himself to these events. So for him, by removing that from his schedule, not only did it give him back more time, it also allowed him to really focus on more things that mattered, and took something out of his week that he absolutely hated. So really think about the tasks that you're doing. Is this actually important? Is this going to have a positive ROI? Is this vital for the business's growth? Because you might have tasks on there that you just do on a regular basis that if you take a step back and look at them, they could potentially be losing you money. They could be taking your focus from things that actually matter, or they might not actually be leading to growth. Again, we want to be absolutely brutal with this because, like I said at the beginning of this video, what you don't do is just as important as what you do do. And by freeing yourself up to focus on the tasks that are going to matter, it's going to allow you to feel far more in control of your day. Then from there, when you've really kind of done a bit of a cull and removed tasks from this list, the next question to ask yourself, if this is important, does this fall into your 90-day targets? And this is why it's vital to really have a clear plan and understanding of where the business is going right now. What are the key objectives that you want to hit in the next 90 days? Because as a CEO, you're going to constantly be bombarded with new ideas and opportunities and paths that you can go down, which on paper may sound amazing. But it's really important to remember that what you're going to focus on to actually hit your goals and objectives, because something that may sound great in the moment could then leave you scattered. It could take your focus off course and could stop you from hitting those goals. I'll give you an example. With one of my clients, he was going through this big launch. They'd spent the last few months really preparing, getting to take everything to market. And when we got on one of our sessions the one day, he told me about this new opportunity they got offered. And this opportunity did sound amazing. It sounded like it was a really lucrative idea. But the problem was, it was in a completely different path that had nothing to do with their current campaign or what they were working on. And for him, he already had so much to get done that he couldn't afford to drop the ball. His focus needed to be entirely on this launch. And that's why I really challenged him to think about, even though those opportunities sounded great, in this moment of time, was it the best thing he could be doing? Was it going to lead towards those 90-day targets, or was it going to be a distraction? And he took a little bit of time to stop and think about it, and he realized that actually he was just being distracted by a shiny object. This was something that, while it may have been great, it wasn't what he should be doing right now. And this is where I incorporate with my clients, and also in my book as well, the idea of having an idea bank spreadsheet, where when you get a new idea, whether it's for a campaign, a project, a new opportunity, whatever it is, if you can't feasibly tackle it in the next 90 days, put it into that spreadsheet. And then every single quarter, you can come back to it and really revisit what you want to be focusing on, what's going to take you to your next 90-day goals. And from there, you can really plan accordingly. In that spreadsheet as well, it's really important to map out what thoughts do you have, what ideas, what's related to it, so that you can have it there knowing that you're not going to forget about it. And also with the added benefit, you can then just let it go, not allowing it to take up any more focus or bandwidth. The next question to then go through is, does this need to be done by you? Now, I can't illustrate enough how important this actually is. And this goes back to what I spoke to you about before, where I speak to a lot of CEOs who, as their business grows and their role changes, they're still being pulled into tasks or things that really shouldn't be taking up their time. That client that I mentioned to you earlier in this video, who came back with that list of 60 things to do, on his to-do list were inviting clients to an event they were running. It was reaching out to various different members in the organization, all tasks that were important. But for him as a CEO, really not things that he should be actually focusing on or allowing to take up his day. Another perfect example of this is a few months ago with one of my clients. He was getting ready for a really big pitch. They were going through a round of funding. They were looking to bring in new investment. But when we got on our coaching call, I could tell that he was really stressed out, that something else was going on. And when I started to ask him what was happening, he said to me that he needed to book his flight and saw his itinerary and accommodation for a business trip that he was doing the following week. Now, obviously, that was important. It needed to get done. But the problem was, even though actually executing that task would only take about 45 minutes, he was allowing that to take up so much bandwidth and causing so much stress and overwhelm that he was actually losing hours overthinking it and worrying about it. To make matters worse, this was actually taking his focus and attention away from preparing for that pitch and presentation that he had in a few days that very much the future of the company was relying on. And to actually look at it from a different way, this is the exact reason why a few months before he'd hired a personal assistant to really handle tasks exactly like this. Yet, this was something when he first started the business that he would have to do. So he just simply had to delegate it and let it go. So it's really important to regularly be visiting what are you working on, and is it actually something that you should be giving your time and attention? Another way to think about this is if you really work out how much as a CEO is your time worth every single hour. So if you did an hour of high value work, whether it's business development, strategy for the business, whatever it may be, how much revenue could you generate? Let's say, for argument's sake, you come back with $500. Well, then anything below that amount shouldn't be done by you. So going back to that client was booking his own travel itinerary, he should not be spending an hour on a task that he could pay someone else $20 to do, because by him allowing that to take up his day, he'd then be losing $480. So it's really about putting at the bigger picture of how much is that time actually worth and what could you generate by actually putting it into something that's actually going to drive you forward. And if the answer is no, it shouldn't be done by you, then from there, think about who do you need to delegate it to, outsource, or hand it over to. Really think about it. Is it a member of your team? Do you need to bring in a contractor? Who's going to be the best person to take ownership of that? Now, I know that this is an overly simplistic model, but that's just because this is a general 5-step process to go through. And I find that for a lot of people that while this can all make sense, this is where they can then start having some resistance. Because if you're struggling with confidence, or you're worrying that your team's going to drop the ball, or you have a fear that no one else can do it at the same level as you, then that's a very different conversation that we have, because that in itself is showing that there's some roadblocks in there that until you address and overcome are going to cause you to continue to get in your own way, and that's going to hold you back. So that's obviously not something that we can break through in this short training, but if there is a challenge that you're having, drop me a message, because that may be something that I can help with. But like I said, this is 5 steps that I really recommend that you go through on a regular basis. Ideally, take some time to do this now to really get your to-do list under control and start putting together a plan to really actually outsource and what you're going to focus on. And then from there, really incorporate this every single week. When you're mapping out and you're planning your week and figuring out what you're going to be focusing on, go through these 5 questions, because I can guarantee that not only is this going to get you clear on what you need to get done, you're also going to remove so many different tasks that are holding you back, so that you can really put your focus and attention on what you need to do to drive the business forward. Also, like I said, this is a big part of what I do with my private clients, because I know that when you're in that tunnel vision and you've got so many different demands and competing agendas and things to get done, it can be very difficult to figure all of this out on your own. And that's why if you do want some extra support, drop me a message. And from there, I can see whether or not what I do could be the right fit to really help you evolve into a more confident, grounded, and effective CEO. So I hope that this helped. Go and execute this. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out as well. Thanks for watching. I'll speak to you soon.